I think it's a shame that there are so many people in the world that do not feel like they have been redeemed of their sins by the death of Christ and through his resurrection as well, because he is the life, he is the way, he is the truth. And when you start to really expand in yourself who you are and why you are the way that you are, and you start to flee from sin and move toward that which is better for your well-being, you start to experience this form of equanimity that is only really experienced by people who are fully endowed with the ability to have compassion for themselves. And if you do not have the ability to have compassion for yourself, there's not going to be that sense of authenticity just flowing around you. But it seems to me that those who are capable of compassion, those who are capable of genuineness, of life to themselves, those people are going to be noticed, and something about you is going to be noticed by other people. Someone will notice something about you that's different. And this will be maybe, through time incrementally, but over time it could just seem like it happens overnight. And the important thing is to develop the relationship that you have with yourself and with Christ. And I think that there's too many people in the world that, unfortunately, they just have been so almost abducted from their own sense of liberty. They've been abducted from their childhood. There's a quote in The Breakfast Club, it says something like, when you get older, your heart dies. And it's not that that's necessarily true. It's just that that's the perception of these kids, right? That all of the adults around them, their heart just wilts. And, well, why is that? Well, it's because the ego, the mind, takes over. And when you don't live from your heart, you're going to lose the childlike qualities of you, and you're going to lose that playfulness side of you. And I think that's a real shame. I think it's a real shame that if you can't ever experience the redemption of Christ in your life, obviously that's part of the salvation process and what it is, but it's also just the joy and the purity of it. It's not even like you're seeking the joy. It's just you can breathe a little bit easier, even if you're maybe not in the best situation at large. Maybe you're not in the best situation that you ever have to yourself and with yourself, but you are absolutely at ease with existence. There are very few people out there that are actually capable of this. And, it's like the narrower you walk on this path, because the path is narrow, and it just like gets more and more narrow. It continues to get more and more narrow. You know how when you're on a road and you look out into the horizon and it looks like the road just kind of, it looks like it goes narrower? That's really interesting, because in the physical world, of course, the closer you move to that point in the far off distance, it is actually just that normal road, right? But spiritually speaking, that image is very symbolic of what the spiritual path is actually like, because you eventually get to a point to where it looks like the road touches, right? And then there's like this wire that you have to walk on. And once you get to that point, it's like game over, man. Like game over. You realize the game is, there is no game, but also you can play that game of no game. Like that's the game of life. And there's this deep serenity that is able to be bestowed upon you should you have the great fortune of accepting Christ in your life, because it is fortunate, it is something that is to be grateful for. And it's interesting how the more I mature within my relationship to Christ, the more I start to see that people just see me differently. And it's not necessarily because I'm doing something out of the ordinary. It's actually quite ordinary, and that's what makes it out of the ordinary. It's almost as if being actually human is weird in our society, right? It's a peculiar thing, because I would have never have thought that it would get to this point in which we have this form of success that is in our minds, but our hearts are so confiscated from the matrix that we live in. And we've given away our hearts to and our souls to so many different people who don't even care. Because there are times on this path where you start to wonder, is anybody even listening? Like, is anybody even actually taking in to heart what's being said, or no? And it's interesting how that happens, because sometimes you're just around people where they make it so covertly seem like you're the problem, where you're actually able to reflect and you're like, okay, well, maybe I wasn't as great as I could have been in this situation. Maybe I could have been a little bit more of this or a little bit less of this. And so you learn from your mistakes, of course, right? And you stay as grounded as possible. And nobody's perfect, but we all do our best, I would say. And I think that that's actually true. We all do our best, even when we're not trying to do our best. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of life, is you get to see people for who they really are when you have eyes to see and ears to hear. And that's when they're at their best. I mean, sometimes a person's best is maliciousness. That's, as terrible as that sounds, that's exactly what it is sometimes. And if you've ever encountered true malevolence or true narcissism, that's something that will scar your soul. And I don't know if there's any true, I mean, you get healed, of course, and you get redeemed through Christ, of course, but you always feel that scar in your soul. I don't think that ever goes away. And I don't think that ever really, you let it go, but you'll always remember it. And there's some wounds that are just meant to scar you that way. I mean, they're just meant to. And the reason being is because it makes you stronger. And sometimes when you are able to heal from those, but you don't let your heart be hardened because of it. Because think about this, right? Think about how so many people have been hurt in this life. And what ends up happening is they actually start to just push that pain onto other people. It's almost like they shovel the pain inside their soul and they just throw the slop at whoever is around them, or whoever reminds them that they could be better. Because maybe you're that person that's different. Maybe you're the person that healed that they didn't think you could heal. They didn't think that you could actually do something about your life. They didn't think you could do something that's different. And when it comes to the inexplicable experience that is the timelessness of life, because to experience the Holy Spirit is in many ways to experience the timelessness of the Spirit in of itself. And when you're able to get to that point of timelessness, it's not that you forget time, but it's that you live in that moving image of eternality. And the moving image of eternalities is something that I think many people will not be able to adhere to. They don't know about it. They don't know how to handle it, because it's something that is so beyond them as far as their understanding that they'll never be able to comprehend it. But fortunately for those of us who are awakened and who are actually truly on the path, even if we're having things to work on or work through, what I really aim to do is help people get a godlike mindset. Okay, you have to have that godlike mindset moving through life. There is no other way to move through life without really burdening your spirit. Because if you don't have that godlike mindset, there's going to be a possibility that you're not going to be able to do what is necessary for you to do to counteract the evil that's been bestowed upon you. You know, I had a dream last night where Batman and the Joker, someone realized that they needed to balance Batman and Joker, and they needed to take the values from each and apply them to their own life and learn how to balance them. So I don't really know who that is for exactly, but that's what I had the dream about. And it didn't feel like it was for me, but it was somebody that needed to have that message and that it resonated with. And I think also, though, that it could be applied to the situation where you have to be able to look at what the hero does and then what the villain does. Now, what does the villain do that's different from the hero and vice versa? Because they both experience tremendous amounts of pain in life. That's what the hero does, though, and that's what the villain does, though. They've experienced pain and they've transcended it, or they've transmuted it in some way. The hero transmutes that pain into something that is giving back in a better way. They transmute that energy into something positive. Whereas the evil person, the villain, they just transmute that energy into pushing back onto them, and they channel the pain and the chaos and they slam it back on other people. And for better or for worse, you have to decide how you're going to behave. How are you going to behave? Are you going to be the person that's able to identify the in juxtaposed positions? Are you going to be able to identify those juxtaposed positions and balance them internally and learn from both the hero and the villain? Because I don't know if anybody told you this, but what if you're the one that's the enemy that's to be loved? You know, I was talking about this on a one-on-one call with someone recently in the session, and like how to love enemies. And something I didn't bring up on the call necessarily, but I was thinking about was, well, what if you're the enemy to be loved? I mean, first you have to understand what it means to love your enemies. Then you have to ask yourself, well, what if I'm the enemy to be loved? You know, what then? And what does that look like? Why would I have to be the enemy? Well, maybe you're standing in your way without even knowing you're standing in your way. And that's something that it's just going to be the case. You know, it's just going to be the way things are. It's just going to be the way that things are transmuting in your life. And that's something that you'll have to simply accept. You can either repress it, you can act on it, or you can accept it. And I recommend, when you don't know how to repress it, or when you don't want to repress it, which I don't ever think you should repress something, but when you don't know how to repress, or you don't want to repress something, and you don't really want to act on it either, or you don't know how to act on it, sometimes it's just best to accept it. And once you accept it, that's another higher form of frequency anyway. So that higher frequency it's going to allow you the opportunity to look and establish what's going on in your situation, and then move in accordance to whatever you need to in the spirit of that time. And you know, that's something that comes back to the self-compassion thing, man. It just comes back to that. And it's not about this, like this, you have to be soft, okay? No. Like, you can still be a godlike savage and have that godlike mindset, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to be able to let the inner child out, okay? You got to have that childlike spirit. You've got to be able to let that child be free, okay? Let him wonder. Let her wonder, whoever it is, right? Like, if you're a male or female watching this, let the inner child be who is meant to be and wants to be. Because whatever's grasping your attention in the spirit of this time, it's grasping your attention for a reason. And so I say, follow it. You know, follow it, because you're going to learn things. You're going to, like, the way that I think about the way that I live my life is, whenever I have new ideas or new topics or new things that I'm learning about, like right now, for the past few months, I've been really diving deep into Bitcoin and just all that, like investments and everything, and how money really works, learning about, like, I know how money works. I know how to do these things. I know how to execute financial plans and all that, but do I actually know how money works? Okay, and when it comes to Bitcoin, do I know how the technology of Bitcoin actually works? And so I studied it, and I studied the history of money and all these things. And so now I'm to the point to where I feel comfortable enough to know, like, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I know that there's great skepticism that is to be had, and there's a place for that. Absolutely. That's definitely something that I think is okay when it comes to this kind of thing. But I also think that we have to look outside the box and see what's at stake here. What's actually going on? What exactly is a currency? What exactly is a technology? What if you fuse the two? What if there was a technology where you could combine it? Just asking these basic questions to just really gauge something. So the way that my mind works is I kind of like orbit around ideas, and then I'll like shoot off. I'll allow the momentum of this idea that I'm learning about to like shoot off into this idea. And then I'll orbit this for a while, and then I'll orbit this for a while, and then I'll orbit this for a while. And that's just kind of how I gather information. I never really go all in on anything except for Christ. That's it. That's the only thing I know I need to go all in on, is Christ and life. So everything else is part of the game that isn't a game. And it's up to you to determine how you want to play that game. This whole existence is an Xbox game in high-tech form, basically. And you're the main character. like you have to at least see your life like that, but also be humble enough to know that like Christ is going to be the one operating through us. Okay? It's not me, but it's Christ through me. I'm part of that vessel of the ancestral Father. So I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. If you did find this useful, I do have a free event coming up that I will include in the links in the description box. There's a free event on November 9th at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And this is going to be an event for people that want to develop, a stoic mindset, a godlike mindset, to overcome lust and to reconnect with their nervous system. And it's going to mainly be for men, but most men or women are going to be invited to it. But again, it's going to be more mainly for men, because we're going to be talking about semen retention and all of that stuff. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out the link in the description box below. I hope you all stay blessed. Peace be with you. Until next time.